There are times during an approach when the pilots may decide to not continue it and carry out a go-around. But why might an approach be aborted, and what does a go-around really involve? Let's find out in this video. Welcome back. In this video, we will explore a topic of some importance, and it concerns go-arounds. We will look at the subject in the context of 3 points: what a stabilized approach is and its importance, what go-arounds really are, and lastly, why they are executed. But before we delve into this, let's take a step back and briefly look at what the aim of an approach is. A safe landing and completion of the landing roll within the available runway is the culmination of a complex process of energy management that starts at the top of descent. So that's the point at which pilots commence descent from cruise level. From this point, the sum of the kinetic energy, so in other words speed, and the potential energy or altitude must be appropriately dissipated to achieve taxi speed before the runway end. The approach, and in particular the final approach, can be viewed as the narrow neck of a funnel guiding the aircraft precisely to the runway threshold, where the energy management options are quite limited. Both air traffic controllers and pilots are experiencing very short decision time, high workload, and few options to maneuver in this flight phase. And the aim of the approach is to deliver the aircraft to the point in space above the runway from which a consistent flare maneuver will result in touchdown at the right speed and attitude and within the touchdown zone. Now, in case you're wondering what a flare maneuver is, this is quite simply reducing the rate of descent just as the aircraft approaches the runway to smooth the touchdown of the aircraft. And for the Airbus A320, from stabilized conditions, the flare height is about 30 feet. Having looked at the aim of an approach, now let's understand the elements that constitute a stabilized approach. These would include being on the correct vertical and lateral or horizontal path. So in other words, the positioning of the aircraft in relation to the touchdown zone of the runway. Also keeping the bank angle within stipulated limits. So this is the angle between the wings and the horizon. Also flying the correct pitch attitude. So this is the angle between the longitudinal axis of the aircraft and the horizon. Also being in the correct and brief landing configuration. In addition, the speed of the aircraft must be within a certain range of the target approach speed, with the engine thrust stabilized above idle. Also, the rate of descent must be commensurate with the approach angle. For a jet aircraft, this typically tends to be around 700 feet per minute on a 3-degree approach path, and this rate varies as it's a function of the aircraft ground speed and the approach angle. Also, the briefings and checklists must have been completed. Quite commonly, airlines require these requirements to be achieved latest by 1,000 feet above airport level, or AAL. Now, there is something known as IMC and VMC, which relates to meteorological conditions, specifically the visibility and cloud base, and the stabilization height cutoff might vary depending on this. But without getting too complicated, 1,000 feet AAL is the latest by which most operators or airlines require the stabilization criteria to be met. Some airlines might even impose more conservative margins and require the achievement of stabilization criteria above 1,000 feet AAL. These are some of the requirements that must be met for an approach to be called a stabilized one. Now, in the context of threat and error management, an unstabilized approach is a serious undesired aircraft state that can have a catastrophic outcome if not correctly managed by the pilots. To share some statistics, between 2011 and 2015, 32 accidents, or 7% of the total accidents, were found to have an identified factor of an unstable approach. As it can be inferred, the importance of flying a stabilized approach cannot be overemphasized. This leads us nicely to the subject of go-arounds and why they're carried out. A go-around is an essential safety maneuver for pilots, and it is quite simply the discontinuation of an approach or not to continue a landing and follow procedures to conduct another approach or maybe divert to another airport. The decision to carry out such a maneuver will assume that the present conditions could potentially make for an unsafe landing, and a go-around can be executed from any point on the approach to the wheels on the runway, so long as the thrust reversers have not been selected. Thrust reversers, which are on the engines, form part of the deceleration devices that help slow an aircraft down after landing. Now that we understand what a go-around is, let's take a look at some of the reasons why it would be carried out. These would include not meeting the stabilization criteria for the approach, or the pilots have any doubts about their situational awareness. Also, not acquiring the required visual references for the type of approach that's being flown by a certain height above the ground. Or maybe air traffic control may have called for it. One of the reasons could be because the runway was blocked, or even adverse environmental conditions, such as an encounter with the wind shear, or basically whenever the crew deems it necessary. The list we just went through is inexhaustive. The key point to remember is that a go-around must be carried out if there was any doubt on the safe continuation of the approach and landing. While a go-around can be startling to passengers, it forms part of an airline's standard operating procedures and is regularly practiced by pilots in the simulator. In fact, on the final approach, pilots must be go-around minded. Again, this is in the interests of safety. Also, during the approach briefing, which would normally be carried out prior to the top of descent, the go-around procedure is carefully reviewed and briefed by the pilots. Effective briefings are key to the execution of safe go-arounds. Alright, so there we have it. We've reviewed an important topic in the realm of aviation safety. Remember, it is always better to go around than continue an unstable approach to landing. And airlines' SOPs encourage pilots to do just that. The next time you're on a plane and the pilots decide to go around, rest assured that they are following a normal procedure in ensuring that safety is maintained. I hope that made some sense and it wasn't too difficult to follow. Now, as always, if you have any questions or comments, or you would like a certain topic related to aviation or flying covered, please put that in the comments below and I shall do my best to cover that in a future video. Well, thanks very much for your time and support, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one again very soon. Thanks again, and I wish you a great day.